Hey everyone, it's me, Gavin, and we're back with another episode of the Backlog Bunker. And this time I want to talk about fighting games, because, like with the series I talked about in the first episode, I made a more concentrated effort to get into fighting games over the past few years, and I mean, okay, so it might be a little bit of an exaggeration to say a concentrated effort, because it didn't start that way. It mostly just started with me playing Dragon Ball FighterZ on Switch, and then I got it on PC because it was super cheap. And because I wanted to play with my friends, and I was like, oh, it's on sale for like $10. You guys should also get it. And so we all just started playing FighterZ. And that was like summer of COVID. No, it was closer to winter, because I remember I was somewhere else at the time. I had to play from my laptop. But yeah, I started with Dragon Ball FighterZ for the most part. And for a long time, I really loved that game. I think it's the fighting game that I have the most time into, even if you combine the time I have in every other fighting game. Because I have something like 200 hours, 220, I think, in FighterZ, and even comparing the next like top two, which are Guilty Gear Strive and Street Fighter 6, they're both at like 50 or so, and then the other 120 has to be made up by games that I don't play nearly as often. I think I have like 20 in BlazBlue, and then that's the next highest up, and then they just get lower from there. So I think I have more time in FighterZ than any other thing combined. Actually, no, because I also played Guilty Gear Zard, and I have like 15 hours or so in that, which, no idea how. I played with some friends like once, but I didn't do all that much labbing or anything, and I didn't play it online, so no idea how I have so much time in that game. But the point being, FighterZ was the first fighting game that I really got into, and evidently so, because it still has yet to be surpassed. But I can't praise FighterZ really, because I think that game gave me a lot of bad habits that has influenced the way I play other fighting games, and it's made it harder for me to get into the rest of them. The first being combos, because combos in FighterZ are very accessible. Combo theory in FighterZ is pretty simple. It's you use lights and then you use heavies, or use mediums and then you use heavies, and there's no like there's no light punch and medium punch, which astounded me when I got into fighting games for real, because playing an ArcSys fighting game, it's like you have A, B, and C, or light, medium, and heavy, or punch, kick, slash, heavy, slash. You know, you have the face buttons being the attack buttons, and then every now and then things will get kind of freaky with a dust in Guilty Gear, but for the most part, it's like, oh yeah, you just have the face buttons, which are the attack buttons in progressive strength order. But then I was astounded when I found out that most fighting games, or I don't know about most, but more straightforward fighting games like Street Fighter or SNK games will be like, oh yeah, there's light punch, and there's heavy punch, and there's light kick, and there's heavy kick, because you can't just follow the progression the same way you would in FighterZ or Guilty Gear. Well, in Guilty Gear Zard, Strive we'll get to, but so FighterZ has a very accessible combo theory, but the problem is that combo theory might be a little bit too accessible, because a lot of it is dictated by auto combos to an extent. And you know, auto combos, again, it makes things accessible, which I like. That's a good thing. However, it made me do something that has negatively impacted the way I play other fighting games, which is mashing. Because in FighterZ, you can get away with mashing a lot of buttons for effectively the same thing to happen as a result of whatever buttons you pressed. Every now and then, you'll get a really strict combo that requires you to do something more specific. Like, for the footage that I'm going to have over this video, it's mostly going to be me in training mode and every now and then with online, depending on the game. And I think for FighterZ, it's mostly going to be me playing online, but every now and then I do like get into training mode in between online matches, and you're probably going to see my button inputs, and they're going to look fucking wild, because in FighterZ, you can kind of just get away with that. Especially since FighterZ has a lot of hit stop on its attacks, so you can mash, and as soon as you react to your button coming out, you can press the next button, and the hit stop lasts for so long, which, you know, relative to the passage of time, it doesn't seem like that long. It's like a fraction of a second, but it's long enough for you to be able to react to it and then start pressing a different button, and then FighterZ will only react to that different button. There isn't really a buffer system in FighterZ, as far as I'm aware. Okay, there is a buffer system, because like I'm pretty sure every game has it to some extent, but it's not very strict. You don't have to commit to a button you press like a full second ahead of time. It's not like No More Heroes, where in No More Heroes 3, you press a button and you're committed to that shit for the next like 5 seconds. Which that's another game we'll get to eventually, but yeah, FighterZ makes combos very accessible, but it also made mashing very acceptable, which was not good for playing every other fighting game. And you're probably gonna see it when I get into training mode for the other fighting games that I play for this video, and you'll notice that that's just muscle memory. That's just what I did in FighterZ, and for a long time it worked. Again, in the footage, you'll probably see my rank in FighterZ being like Demon or Majin, whatever happens in the Boo arc in DBZ. But it's somewhere around there, and I'm pretty sure I ranked down in the footage because I haven't played FighterZ in, at this point, probably close to a year and a half, 2 years. But even ranking down, I still managed to sort of get back into the swing of using certain combos, like with Vegito, because Vegito's bread and butter combos are so easy that I could get away with not only mashing, but also pulling them off successfully, despite having not played the game for close to a year now, or to over a year now, I should say. Though, obviously, I still get my ass kicked, because it's been a minute, to say the least. And then another bad habit that FighterZ has given me is jumping, because, okay, it might be unfair to blame this on FighterZ specifically, because this applies to all ArcSys games, well, almost all, except for one that we'll talk about later, but it applies to almost every ArcSys game, which is that you can block in midair, and so you can do fake outs in ArcSys games by empty jumping and then just blocking, because, you know, you get hit by an anti-air, you block it, projectile, block it, anything that you can use to just progress and then stop progressing to block, you can do that in the air too. In other fighting games, it's harder, because if you jump, you have to really commit to it, and you have to know that you're not going to get hit, because you just don't have any defensive options. Unless you're, like, a specific character that has some kind of option, like a Dalsim, but for the most part, that's just not a thing you can do in other fighting games. And that was not the case in ArcSys games, especially in FighterZ, which is very, very air-focused. And so, FighterZ taught me a lot of things about fighting games that it really should not have taught me, because they were wrong. And so, now, I jump a lot in the fighting games that I play. And again, it's not specifically FighterZ's fault, because I also play Guilty Gear, and you can air block in Guilty Gear as well. Air dash, too, that's another thing that those games have, for the most part, that other fighting games don't. And it's something I have to continuously relearn all the time, even though I've been playing other fighting games that aren't ArcSys for at least a couple of months now, and it's just something that I always have to get used to. It wasn't all bad, though. FighterZ, like I said, it's very accessible, and one of the things that I think is a good thing that they improved for in terms of casual fighting game players, or people who are like getting into fighting games, is supers. And in FighterZ, super inputs are quarter circle forward, and then the super button. And, well, it's not a super button, but it's effectively a super button. And so, the actual input for doing a super is very simple and easy, which I think is better for a game like FighterZ, where the combos are the more execution-heavy parts, and then the super is just a way to end it to get big damage. I've only ever partially understood why super inputs are made more difficult in other fighting games, but partially because they have iframes, and they're obviously really strong, so if you could just whip them out in any second, they would be really, really annoying, even with meter requirements. And so I understand why other fighting games do it, but again, FighterZ just isn't really that kind of game, and so I understand why they would make it more simple in FighterZ. The only problem I have with FighterZ doing this with supers is that FighterZ still carries over the thing from other fighting games, which is that supers are invincible for the first few frames. And so, having reaction supers that are only a quarter circle forward and a button is kind of stupid in the game where they're still invincible. They should take a page out of DNF Duel's book and make them not invincible. Or even Tekken, because Rage Arts in that game are also not invincible. They have super armor, but not invincible. If someone's on their last legs, which they're going to be if they're using a Rage Art, then you can just kill them before it goes off. And in FighterZ, reaction or wake up level 3s was very much an annoying thing to deal with, especially on characters with beam level 3s, because they could react to anything you do from halfway across the stage, and then you're just done. Like, yeah, it'll turn into blue health that you can recover if you have a sparking, or if you have other teammates you can switch out into, but if you don't have those things, then you're kind of fucked. And even if you do have a sparking, but you're the last character, you just have to pop it now. You can't wait, because any loss in neutral is just death. But otherwise, I don't really have that much to say about FighterZ, because like I said, I do appreciate it for getting me into fighting games. It may have given me a lot of bad habits, especially supported by other ArcSys games, but in the end, I play fighting games more now, and so I see it as a net positive. I can't really complain. But a game that I've been playing recently that might be FighterZ if it was good is Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And now, I haven't really played it all that much, especially not with other people, so I can't definitively say, oh yeah, this is FighterZ if it was good. However, I'm noticing a lot of patterns in MVC3 that came from Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that game, minus the very, very fast pace of the actual moves themselves, because there ain't no hits on in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I'll tell you that. Aside from the fast pace of the game, it very much feels like FighterZ to me. There's the progressive face buttons that are just light, medium, heavy, and then I forget what S stands for. I'm just gonna say slash, because Guilty Gear. There's air blocking and a focus on air combat in general. Characters can run, as opposed to other fighting games where it's usually just a step dash, like, you know, they just take one step forward really quickly. But no, characters can, like, actually just continuously run in MVC3. Obviously, it's a tag game. I didn't really mention that much about FighterZ, but, you know, it's a tag game. Which is something else that I feel like gave me sort of bad habits, because there's a lot of assists in FighterZ that you can just sort of use to make anything invincible, or to make anything safe, I should say. And so, having to play other fighting games where it's like, what do I even do in neutral? It made things a tiny bit harder, but yeah, MVC is also a tag game. What else? The combo theory is, again, pretty straightforward. Watching tutorials on MVC, I definitely have an easier time understanding the combos and, again, the theory that goes into those combos better than I do in other games. Because in a lot of other fighting games that I've played, even ArcSys games, specifically Guilty Gear Strive, where they'll be like, oh yeah, these things combo, and I'm like, really? Why? And it's just sometimes just like, because they do. Especially in Guilty Gear, it's really weird with like Risk, but again, combo theory, pretty simple. And playing MVC, again, for as short of a time as I have, has felt like getting into a different version of FighterZ, which is why I wish that MVC3 had an online scene that was popping off more, or just I had more friends that played it, because, again, with FighterZ, I started off playing with friends, and then I progressed into just playing online, because, you know, obviously. But with MVC3, and a couple of the other fighting games that I've played, I kind of had to start with online because I didn't have friends who played it, and so, again, I wish there was more online, because I tried to get into like a quick match, which I'm pretty sure might be in my footage, and it just didn't happen. It wasn't happening, because I assume that there aren't that many people playing quick matches, just trying to get into ranked on MVC3, because everyone who plays the game nowadays either plays with friends or plays alone somehow. Or I shouldn't say somehow, they could just be doing it to lab for locals. But that's another thing, I could just go to locals, but I don't really have enough time at college to really go to locals like I kind of want to. And then back home, it's just not as easy to find locals, especially not ones that are really popping off. If I went to a local around nowadays, I'd probably get my ass kicked most of the time, which is still a valuable experience of fighting games, but it's not very fun when it comes to getting into fighting games, at least not for me. I want to start off playing people who are on my level, and then we both push each other to get higher and higher until I can then spread out to play the rest of the fan base, which again is what I did with FighterZ and a few other games that I played with friends. But yeah, I want to get more into MVC3, but for now it's kind of just harder FighterZ, because again, in my footage you're probably going to see me struggling quite a bit. And to talk more about ArcSys games, I guess now it's about time to get into Guilty Gear Strive. And on my list of things to talk about for this episode, I only put down Strive, though I guess I probably should talk about Zard at least a little bit, because I did own Zard Revelator on PS4 first, and I played that a little bit, and I didn't like it at first. I can't even remember like what exactly my thought process was when I was playing it, but I remember I had bought Persona 5 at the same time, so I felt like playing that much more. Plus, I didn't have PS Online, so it's not like I was going to hop in online for that game either. Point being, I technically started with Zard, and then Guilty Gear Strive hadn't come out yet, because it came out in like 2021, I believe, and I had my laptop in 2020, but what was out was the theme song for Guilty Gear Strive, Smell of the Game, and I thought it was a fantastic song, and I was like, wait, this is Guilty Gear? Don't I have that on PlayStation? And then I looked at it on PlayStation, and I said, oh wait, I'd have to like buy online for that. Isn't this like the whole reason I got a computer? And so I bought it on PC instead. and I still haven't played it online on PC, so I guess you could say it's kind of a waste, but I still like Zard, so I don't consider it a waste. I'll probably play it more at some point. The reason I play Strive is because it's good casual fodder, because when I play Zard, I feel this drive to want to get better at it, for two reasons. For one, Zard has a Gatling system, which is, you can do, again, combo theory is punch kick slash heavy slash, and it just sort of makes sense to me. Of the little bit of Zard that I've played with other people, I've managed to pull out some, like, actual combos from just, you know, build-up-airing it. I didn't really have to go into online, look online for, oh, what things combo into other things, what combos does this character have. I was just able to play the game. Shocker, I know. But with Strive, I don't really feel as much like I want to get that much better at the game, and I'm fine with where I'm at. Because with Strive, it doesn't have a Gatling system. It has slash into heavy slash, but that's not really a combo if it's only 2 hits. And so, like I said before, I don't really understand Strive's combo theory all that much. And I'll see people do things online, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's a combo. And it doesn't really make any sense to me. Like even with my main, Leo, my longest combos with him are back turn slash heavy slash super. So there isn't really a lot of comboing that I like to do or even understand all that much in Strive. But the reason I play it is because Strive's neutral game is pretty fun. And I don't really feel like I need to use combos all that often just to be able to succeed. I will if I wanted to play at, like, the top levels, but again, I don't really feel that drive to, because I'm really only interested in the neutral game, and the neutral game is what I can get away with in the 7th and 8th floors, so I'm fine with playing Strive the way that I do. And so, like I said, I don't really want to take the dip into Zard yet, because with Zard, I feel like there are things that I want to progress at. I don't really have the time to get into Zard like I did for FighterZ, or like I want to for MVC. So that one's in the backlog still technically, but for now it's just Strive. Also because Strive has more characters that I like. Because in Zard, I really only like playing Leo and Sin, and then I guess you can kind of count Soul, but he's like the basic character. So I feel like if you don't like playing Soul, you probably just don't like playing Guilty Gear. But yeah, in Zard it's really just Leo and Sin. But in Strive, it's Leo, Sin, Kai, Soul, and Anji. And I kind of want to get into Chip, too. Because there's just quite a few characters in Strive that I want to play. And hey, if they end up adding Jam... Oh, right, Jam in Zard as well. And if they end up adding Jam to Strive, I'll probably end up playing her, too. Unless they make her bad. But I'll probably end up playing Jam. Because part of the reason I even bought Strive in the first place is because for a long time, I just decided against buying Strive because I was like, the only character I even want to play is Kai, but Kai's kind of boring, so I don't really want to play Strive. If they put Sin in the game, then I'll buy it. And then they put Sin in the game, so I bought it. And so I started playing Sin, and then I started playing Leo just like incidentally, and I ended up liking him a lot, so now those are the characters I play. Also, if you're curious about Marvel vs. Capcom and FighterZ, you've probably already seen it on screen at this point, but my mains for FighterZ are UI Goku, Z Broly, Vegito, Gogeta, GT Goku, and the 6th character is kind of here and there. Sometimes it's base Vegeta, sometimes it's Bardock. It's all over the place for the most part. And then for MVC, I'm mostly interested in Zero, Iron Man, and Dante. And then I kind of want to replace Dante with Virgil because Virgil is a little bit cooler in terms of the moves he can actually use, but I find Dante more interesting to play because it really does just feel like playing Dante from Devil May Cry 3. He has all his goddamn moves, and it's a long special move list, but I want to be able to use all of it. I'm like, I fucking use, I think it's down and heavy, and I'm like, oh shit, that's just Stinger and million stabs. I can do that, like in MVC, the same way I do in the other game. And playing Dante in MVC has given me the thought of like, what if there's like a Dead Cells like DMC game? Because right now, DMC 6 is potentially never going to be a thing. So what if we just did like a spin-off, but not Peak of Combat, being whatever the hell Peak of Combat is. I played it for like 20 minutes and I almost wanted to kill myself. But what if we just had like a side-scrolling DMC game? It would evidently work since Dante and Virgil both control perfectly fine in MVC. So like, what if? And I say Dead Cells specifically because Dead Cells is a 2D action game that I like a lot. So like, make a game for me specifically. But getting sidetracked, I guess we're done talking about Guilty Gear, because there isn't much else to say. Like I said, Strive is good for just playing casually. I like being as good at it as I am, and I don't particularly feel like I need to get any better, nor do I want to. So, that's just that. And Zard is a slightly harder game, but that's what makes it more interesting for me to want to get into, but that'll happen at some other point. So, that's that for Guilty Gear. And then to just continue the train with ArcSys stuff, because why not? I also talked about Blazblue earlier, because Blazblue, behind FighterZ, is probably the game that I'm best at of the fighting games that I play now. It actually might be Strive at this point, but I put a lot of time into Blazblue as well, especially playing with friends. And Blazblue, like FighterZ, is a game that I played with friends because the online scene is absent. And so I felt myself getting better at Blazblue specifically in line with the friend I was playing with. So it felt like I was actually... I could actually tell my progression, because I could tell what parts I was or was not fucking up anymore. And so Blazblue is probably the fighting game that I like the most of the ones that I play semi-consistently now. Because right now, it's Street Fighter, Strive, Blazblue semi-frequently, and that's kind of it. So, between those, I think Blazblue is the one I like the most, because Blazblue has a lot of characters that I like, even though the actual reserve teams you can set up is only 3. I want to set up way more than that. But yeah, a lot of characters that I like, and the actual mechanics are mostly good. There are some defensive mechanics that I find particularly annoying in Blazblue, but for the most part, just playing the game normally feels pretty fun. Especially since I think Blazblue hits a very safe balance between the very long combos in FighterZ and the neutral game that I like in Strive. And honestly, it's kind of hard for me to describe what I even like that much about Blazblue, because it plays like FighterZ more so than other fighting games. Probably FighterZ more so than Guilty Gear, even though it's kind of supposed to be a spinoff of Guilty Gear. Well, actually, I guess visually, it reminds me of how it looks to play the older Guilty Gears, and even Zard to an extent. But I haven't played those Guilty Gears, aside from Zard. So I think in terms of actual feel, it reminds me of FighterZ, but it might actually just be reminiscent of older Guilty Gear, which would make sense given Blazblue's history. And yeah, I can't even really describe what I like about the game, aside from just I like the characters, because my mains in Blazblue are Mika, Chie, Yu, and Yosuke. I play a few other characters, like Adachi, on the side, but those 4 that I named are the characters I like the most, especially Mika. Mika is probably my favorite character in Blazblue, but the hard part about playing her is that she kind of sucks dick. She's a grappler with no anti-air grab, and the only grab she does have is very reactable. So it makes it hard to play Mika sometimes, because I have to contend with the uphill battle of playing a character that sucks dick, even though I like her the most. But my tier 4 team, I guess you could call it, is Yosuke and Chie, because as far as I know, they're both considered pretty good characters, and I like playing them. So if I ever need to actually win, I suppose I'll whip out that team. And then whatever team Yu's on, because I'm pretty sure Yu's also considered pretty good. I think that goes for the entire Persona cast, minus Yukiko, actually. I'm pretty sure everyone from P4 Arena is considered pretty good in BB Tag. Which I guess I didn't describe until now, by the way. I've been saying Blazblue, but I need to specify Blazblue Tag, which I suppose if you know what characters I'm talking about, that'll probably be pretty obvious. But I want to specify Tag specifically, because I own Chrono Phantasma, but I haven't played it yet, especially since I just bought it, because it was like 99 cents on Steam, so I was like, yeah, why not? But I haven't played any other BlazBlues. I've only played BB Tag, and it was surprising to me hearing from other people how much they don't like Tag, because one of the things I only ever hear about that game is how it's the last BlazBlue game, which is so disappointing because it sucks. But I like it a lot, so I don't really know what exactly people mean when they say that it sucks. It might just be another MVC Infinite situation where people are like, oh yeah, everyone knows that game sucks. Well, then you actually get into it, people are like, oh no, the gameplay is actually pretty fun. And it's like, oh, so why'd everyone hate it? And for like MVC, it's because Infinite looks ugly and has a bad story, which is like, and a small cast. And those things are very valid complaints, but the complete shunning of that game from the entire community, and to an extent gaming at large, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If the gameplay is good, that's like the most important thing. Isn't that why old-ass fighting games with a player base of like 10 people still survive to this day? Is because even though no one's ever heard of them, people still find them fun, and so they still play them? Why does MVC get a different treatment? I guess, well, okay, I guess you could say there probably are 10 people playing MVC at this point, but still, I would think that the gaming majority at large would understand, oh, MVCI is like fun to play. It's just very unfortunate in terms of those other things. I don't know why we would need an entire fucking overhaul of the game by Maximilian Dude for people to like get back into that. But again, I distracted from the actual thing I'm talking about, which is Blazblue. I suppose it's kind of ironic that my favorite characters to play in the Blazblue game are not Blazblue characters, which gives me a little bit more of an understanding of why people might not like Tag all that much. But again, I like the game, and it's fun to play for specific characters, even if one of them, which is my favorite one, might kinda suck. But it's better than what I used to do for BlazBlue, because I also bought BlazBlue on Switch around the same time I got FighterZ. Actually, no, I didn't buy it on Switch. I got the demo on Switch. And then I was like, oh, I like this game, so I bought it on PC. But I used to play Yang. Oh, wait, no. I think I must have bought it on Switch then, because Yang's not in the demo. So, I think I did buy it on Switch. I guess I own BlazBlue twice now. Whoops. But, yeah, I used to like Yang a lot, because despite the fact that I think RWBY's an awful show, which I'll probably never talk about on the channel, because I don't see the need, but RWBY, awful show. Always has been bad. But Yang is like my favorite character from that show, and I was very happy to find out that I liked playing her in Tag. But the more I played her, the more to be specific, the more I played other characters, the more I realized I didn't like Yang quite as much, because I don't think her normals are all that great. And her power-up mechanic is fun when you get to use it, but that doesn't really happen all the time when you're playing against someone who's pretty competent. Especially since it procs automatically, and that can kind of just get you hit sometimes. So, yeah, Yang, fun to use, especially in the powered-up form, but it requires so much uphill work on my part that she just became a not as fun character to play. Which is weird, because Mika is also not a fun character to play, because she sucks so much. So I don't know why I liked her. I don't know why I like playing her, but I like grapplers in general, and Mika, like I said, shitty grappler, but still a grappler. And she's got fun moves, especially her Air B, which you can just charge up, and it's plus on block. Like, it's plus on block even if you use it raw, but if you use it charged up, if you use the charged up version, it's even more plus on block. So I just get to do whatever the fuck I want if I can pop off an air move. Especially if it goes air to air. If it goes air to air, I just get to do any 50-50 when they land. And then when they're on the ground, I get to do anything. It's another 50-50. It's either an air to ground 50-50 or it's a ground grab 50-50. Because Mika's fun. Mika's fun. She's awful, but I like playing her because she's awesome. But speaking of Mika, I guess it's another ArcSys game that I've played a little bit of. I guess it's more accurate to say that I want to play it, which means it might not belong in this video series all that much, but Under Night In-Birth 2, specifically, because that game came out, which was surprising to me because I had always assumed that Under Night was just going to be one of those games where they came out with one, and then they kept iterating on it like they do for arcade games, and then that was just kind of going to be it forever. Like Virtua Fighter 5. Virtua Fighter 5 came out, like, what, 15 years ago? And then they just kept refining it until it became Virtua Fighter 5, the real one, in like 2016, I want to say. Because Virtua Fighter 5, as it exists now, is not what Virtua Fighter 5 looked like when it first came out. And I thought Under Night was going to be another case of that, because BlazBlue existed to replace Guilty Gear, whereas Under Night existed to just be its own thing. And no, not every fighting game that a company makes needs to become a franchise. Sometimes you just make a fun fighting game that you think that you've done everything you can with the mechanics, and it's like, yeah, this is that fighting game. But then they finally came out with Under Night In-Birth 2, and I played a little bit of it, if you catch my drift. And I liked playing Mika in 2 as well. I say 2 as well, like I played the first one. No, I've only played 2, and Tag, obviously. But playing her in 2 felt interesting, because there are a lot of things that Mika can do, or rather can't do, in Tag that makes it very apparent why she's not a great character. But playing her in In-Birth 2, it was like a whole different fucking game. I could build-a-bear combos with Mika in Under Night 2, and so I was thinking about it, and I might just want to buy Under Night In-Birth 2 specifically to play Mika, for literally no other characters, except for the shield guy. The shield guy looks fun, but specifically for Mika, because if I can manifest a universe in which Mika is not only a fun character to play, but also a good character to play, then I feel like it's my responsibility to pursue that dream as much as I possibly can. Right? Right? I'm not crazy? I guess the only bad thing about Under Night 2 is that allegedly the PC version kind of sucks dick, so I'm gonna hold off on buying that until I'm absolutely sure that I can play it with no hassle, because I don't want to get it on console for #obvious reasons. The only way I would ever get a fighting game on console nowadays is if it's a fighting game that I love so ungodly much that I want to have it in my physical collection just to be able to see it on my shelf, even if I never end up playing on that console. I just want to have the game on my shelf to be able to look at. That's the only scenario in which I would buy a fighting game physically, aside from the copy of Guilty Gear Xrd that I already have. And I guess technically the copy of Street Fighter V that I have because it was given to me, but I don't really plan on playing that one either. Unless I end up wanting to play Laura more, but that's a different thing. I might end up talking about that in a future episode, but for now it's really just, hopefully Under Night 2 has better online either at some point or now. I haven't really gone back to check in any capacity, but I want In-Birth 2 to have a good online so that I can actually play Mika in a fun game. Or no, not to say that Tag isn't a fun game, but play Mika in a scenario in which she's good and fun. I'll probably ask my friend to play it at some point. I think I was supposed to ask him when I first picked up Under Night 2, but I didn't. So I should do that at some point. I'll probably forget after I end up finishing recording this, but I forget a lot of things, so it'll loop back around eventually. Also, I realized that now that I've been calling it Under Night 2 and In-Birth 2 intermittently throughout this whole thing, and as far as I'm concerned, that's just not my fault. They called the fucking series Under Night In-Birth. They called the first game Under Night In-Birth, and they called the fucking revision Under Night In-Birth Sis Celeste some other bullshit. We're just not gonna fuck with that. I'm just gonna call it Under Night 2, and then sometimes I say In-Birth 2 because that's the word that comes before the 2, obviously. And sometimes I want to call it Unib, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue quite as well. It's easier in text, but anyone who has any qualms about me calling it Under Night 2 or In-Birth 2, I suppose I prefer Under Night 2, because it's like saying Xenoblade 2. Everyone knows what you're talking about. You call it In-Birth 2, and everyone's gonna go, fucking, what did you just say to me? And so I'll probably stick to Under Night 2, but I suppose it probably won't matter all that much because no one plays the game for me to even be able to talk to anyone about it anyway. So I suppose I don't really have anything to worry about. And as for the last ArcSys game that I have to talk about, which is DNF Duel, DNF Duel is probably the most disappointing one of any of the games that I've played today, or that I talk about today, because DNF Duel, on paper, looks like my favorite fighting game of all time. It's got a bunch of RPG archetypes in it, which is awesome because I love RPGs. The characters themselves play in very, very interesting ways. The visual style of the game is awesome because, I mean, it's ArcSys. How could it not be? There's so many things that look really awesome about DNF Duel, and then you start playing the game, and it's not quite as cool. I will say that DNF Duel having like 2 players is definitely more cruel of a fate than it probably deserved, because the game itself is very janky, but that's never stopped fighting game players from enjoying a game before, so that's not really a complaint necessarily. And I even find the game fun. You know, I like playing it, especially with my mains being the Crusader, the guy with the big fucking hammer that you've probably seen on Twitter, because he's probably the most jank character in the game, and he's awesome. He's just a fucking tank. He can set up walls. He's got a lot of interesting moves, which makes him really fun to play. And so, a lot of big, interesting moves. His neutral game is, like, the most fun in the game, so I like him a lot. The Grappler, for obvious reasons, you know, name's a bit on the nose, but whatever works, I suppose. The Kunoichi, because she's also got a lot of just really fun moves, and I like fast characters in fighting games. And most importantly, because she's bad as hell, and I'm not talking about on a tier list. The Launcher, because I don't really like playing zoners in fighting games. I find zoners to be abhorrently boring. The only 2 that I've kind of even gotten close to liking are Axel in Guilty Gear, because he's a melee zoner, which is very interesting to me, and his moves are very fun to use, and the launcher in DNF Duel, because she's so unfair in a lot of instances, and she could just spend the entire game spamming the same guns that are just impossible to get through, because you can't air block in DNF Duel, which is very rare for an ArcSys game, but whatever works, I guess. Well, I guess it doesn't work, but because it makes the launcher super annoying to fight, but that's what makes her fun to play. She's just really, really annoying. The Ranger? No, the Ranger's the one with the 2 guns. He's the one I don't like, because his normals are projectiles. He's a zoner I don't like in DNF. It's the Troubleshooter, that's his name. Troubleshooter. He has a gun and a sword, and he's really fun. And also his name's the fucking Troubleshooter. Is that not perfect design? Is it in general? I mean, like, in terms of like his actual design is pretty good, but also his name is the fucking Troubleshooter. Is that not awesome? How do you get any better than that? But yeah, I like DNF Duel's characters a lot, especially since lore-wise, I am very interested to see what the hell's going on with them, because obviously you can tell from looking at DNF Duel that it's supposed to be like a fantasy thing. Like I said, it's RPG characters, but then there's the fucking assassin, or whatever his name is, which might be the Ranger. No, this is a different guy, because the Ranger wears red. The assassin's different. Whatever. There's the fucking assassin or whatever, and he's taking out his comms device, talking to some secret organization, and it's like, oh, so they do have, like, complex technology and whatnot in the DNF universe. What the hell's going on in this series? And it makes me very interested to see what the source material is about. But then I find out that the source material is some free-to-play MMO bullshit that I am just not even kind of interested in approaching. So that's disappointing, but again, I find the concept of it all very interesting, and it makes me wish that more companies did just like weird-ass licensed games, because obviously original stuff is cool and all, and people obviously still come up with good original things, but every now and then, I'm thinking, maybe just make like a Kingdom Hearts fighting game. You know, wouldn't that be awesome, Capcom, or whoever the fuck? I've got a lot of ideas for a Kingdom Hearts fighting game that I think would be pretty fun, which I might talk about in a stream or something, because I don't think it really fits into this video, especially not right now. But the point is that I want more licensed games, because licensed games have a bit of a stigma around them for very obvious reasons. But at the end of the day, it's all about who makes the game and for what reason, because the Batman Arkham games are licensed games, and Arkham Knight is one of my favorite games of all time, so licensed games can absolutely be fantastic. And DNF Duel is, again, a very strange game, but it's fun, and I like playing it, and if it wasn't so weird, then I'm sure other people would like playing it too. Also, if it didn't fucking crash my mod loader on Epic Games, because I got the game for free on Epic because they were giving it away, and the mod loader just doesn't work for that game at all. I think it's called Unverum or something. But yeah, the mod loader just doesn't work in any capacity for the Epic version, which means that I can't fucking do anything with any of my mods unless I install them manually, or if I install them manually, that means I can't turn them off unless I put them in a different folder or something. I don't know. It's annoying. Honestly, I'll probably just end up making the Epic Game Store a topic all of its own in one of these backlog bunkers, because the Epic Game Store sucks dick. And I know it's gonna come up when I talk about a certain game in the future, but for now, DNF Duel, fun game, very jank, kind of weird. I wish more people played it, because it would be nice to just hop into some jankness every now and again, but I'm also fine just playing it whenever I do with friends. So that's that. That's the ArcSys games. And now we get to the parts that are a little bit harder to talk about, because the next game I want to talk about is King of Fighters 15, because I want to get into King of Fighters, A, because I haven't really played any SNK games, and considering how big in the fighting game space they are, I think it's important that I do get into an SNK game, at least before City of the Wolves comes out. I guess City of the Wolves could be my first one, but probably not. I think I have Garou downloaded to my Dreamcast emulator on my PC, but I haven't actually played it. So, I haven't really gotten into an SNK game, is the point. But even then, it's still hard for me to get into King of Fighters 15, because playing it is really, really difficult. Because King of Fighters 15 is the most strict I've ever had a fighting game be with my inputs. Like, to bring it back to FighterZ doesn't really have a lot of command inputs, and a lot of the ways you get different moves in FighterZ is, as I mentioned before, through auto combos. The only way you're ever going to see Vegito's left kick, for example, is if you use his light auto combo, like multi-kick first. And so, when playing other fighting games, it became harder for me to link moves together, at least link normals together, because if the combo theory wasn't straightforward, then I wouldn't know just what buttons to press after whatever other button, but also because sometimes they would require a little bit more than just pressing a certain button at a certain time, then I would get confused, and I would have to keep looking back over the combo list and be like, wait, okay, what exactly am I doing at this moment? And King of Fighters 15 makes that way, 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 way harder. Because as I understand it, other fighting games have buffer systems in which you don't necessarily have to do down, right, and then right and an attack at the same time to be able to use a special move. That's what they ask of you, but somehow fighting games have some sort of buffer system where they can tell what you're trying to do whenever you do that system of movements and a button press at the same time. And like I said before, FighterZ doesn't have a strict buffer system, but it has a buffer system, because evidently I've never had a problem using special moves in FighterZ, and even in other fighting games, Street Fighter is a little bit difficult, but that's mostly with Kimberly, so that might not actually count. But for other fighting games, it really just hasn't been a problem. It's nice that with fighting games, they all use the same motion inputs, so you don't really have to relearn a new control system every time you play the games. If you know how to do a quarter circle and a button, you know how to do a fireball. That's the classic thing about fighting games. And that applies to King of Fighters as well. But whenever I play King of Fighters, it always feels like I need to be very, very precise with the way I do my quarter circle and punch, but for the fireball to actually be able to come out, or whatever move it is. Because sometimes I'll swear on my life that I did the input correctly, and it just doesn't come out the way that I want it to. And I think the time that it happened to me, which was the dead giveaway that something wasn't exactly as straightforward with King of Fighters, was when I was doing a special move, and then trying to do a different special move that required another quarter circle, and I kept getting the first special move and then a DP. And I realized that the reason was because with the first special move, I had done the quarter circle and pressed the button, and then my finger was still on forward, and so when I did the next quarter circle, and my finger went to down, right, and I pressed the punch button, I guess a little bit too early, it did a DP instead. And so, instead of the actual other move, which is supposed to be another quarter circle. And so, what I realized was that I think the way King of Fighters 15's buffer system works, and this is just speculation on my part from not having looked this up, is that I think that with King of Fighters, or at least, sorry, with other fighting games, if they see you do down, right, and then punch, they will buffer that punch for when you do a forward, because they know that what you're trying to do is do a quarter circle forward punch, or whatever. And for King of Fighters, they do not wait. Whenever you press the button is whenever they put that button in. And so if you do down, right, and then punch, you'll probably get a light punch, or a crouching punch. And then if you do forward, it just won't do anything. But if you do down, right, punch, you get a light punch. And then if you hit punch again at the end of the quarter circle, that might actually count for a fireball or whatever. So again, this is just speculation on my part, especially since I don't know every special move in King of Fighters, and so I don't know if this actually works out this way, but I'm pretty sure that that's how it works, which is annoying to me because it's way more strict than any other fighting game I've played, which makes King of Fighters really hard to play, which is unfortunate because King of Fighters looks very interesting to me. I like 15's style a lot, and a few of the characters too, specifically Shermie, because she's a grappler, and because she's bad as fuck. I don't mean the tier list. So, I want to play King of Fighters, especially, again, leading up to City of the Wolves, because that game also looks very interesting, but it's definitely an uphill process when the special moves are so hard to pull off. And it's something else that makes it hard is that, and I'm pretty sure I do this in the footage as well, is there are certain things that link into other things, but I'm not sure when they're supposed to. Because for other fighting games, the way that moves link together is that once the move ends, you then link into the next move. If you use a punch into a special move, you have to wait for the punch to end to do the special move. Now, you don't necessarily have to wait, per se. You can buffer the special move and it'll still come out. But for the most part, the animation of the punch will have to end before the next thing goes through. And then, so on and so forth for special moves into other special moves, or special moves into supers. But for King of Fighters, there are times where they want you to input the next special move, the next super, literally the second that your first special move or super hits. And so it makes things difficult because I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I'm supposed to wait until the animation ends to be able to use the next move. But I'm actually supposed to, before the animation even starts playing, be inputting the next special move, because if I don't, it's just not fast enough. And that's, I get that that's literally dictionary definition a skill issue, but it is such a hard hurdle to clear that it makes playing the game in any sort of like earnest capacity kind of hard. Because yeah, I could just spam normals and random one-off special moves and be able to play the game just fine like I do in like I do in Guilty Gear Strive, but I don't really want to do that in King of Fighters because there are interesting things to do in that game, and I want to be able to link moves together. Even if they're not particularly long combos, because I'm not a huge fan of combos in fighting games, I want to be able to string at least 2 moves together so I can guarantee hits on certain things, because just using them raw isn't as fun in a game that's not like Strive, where that game is very much designed around one-offs and stray hits. It also doesn't help that the tutorial for KOF 15 is bare bones. I know that fighting game tutorials have been awful for a long time, but they've been getting better. Strive's is fantastic, even if I think it misses in a few places. Dragon Ball FighterZ, not amazing, but they did improve it with Season 3, because they added a bunch of new mechanics, and were like, hey, we should probably teach you how to like play the game. And the combo trials in FighterZ are actually pretty good. They not only teach you the combo theory, but they also get progressively hard in a very natural way. I think that the first 5 are kind of a waste, because the first 5 combo trials for any character will be like, use this character's auto combo, use this character's medium auto combo, use a heavy and then use a special move, use a super. it's a bit of a waste of time, but the last 5 are generally progressively hard, and they will teach you things about the characters and like actually how to play them. I think GT Goku's is hard. That's one I remember struggling on for a long time, but it taught me how to play GT Goku for the most part, so that's nice. And this doesn't just apply to King of Fighters 15, because it also applies to Tekken 7 specifically. I know that 8 has a tutorial, at least I'm pretty sure it does, so I played the demo, but 7 doesn't have anything even kind of like that. It has a trading room, which I'm pretty sure you have to pay for, and that's it. And Tekken not having a tutorial is really annoying to me specifically, because Tekken is probably the least intuitive fighting game that I have ever played in my entire life. And this is probably the part where I'm going to lose some people, because now we're going to talk about fighting games that I don't like, for one reason or another. And for Tekken, it's that I hate playing it because it feels like nothing makes sense. And it's strange, because on paper, Tekken feels like it should make the most sense. Every button corresponds to a limb, and combos in Tekken are really just about whatever moves you can hit them with while they're still in the air before they've gotten back up. Even if they're on the ground, if they're choosing not to get back up, you can still hit them with things because they're just kind of sitting there. It's not like in other fighting games where when you're in crumple state, you just can't really, or you can't really hit them because they have iframes or whatever until they tech. But in Tekken, if they're there, you can hit them, and even if they're teching, if they're teching in a direction where you're still able to hit them, you can still hit them. Which, again, it feels like it should make the most sense. But then, actually, and from a mechanical standpoint, it kind of does. Looking at Tekken, when I see Tekken played, it makes sense to me. There are a few times where I see moves hit and where I'm like, did that really connect? But for the most part, looking at Tekken, it all makes sense. The problem is when I press the buttons in the video game. That's when things get weird, and where I feel like things aren't actually working in any way that I expect them to. Like, the limb system. I understand that the limbs aren't necessarily like other fighting games, where it's like, you know, it's not like ArcSys games, where you can do, like, medium heavy. Or even in Street Fighter, or SNK, where you can do light punch into heavy punch. Or in Street Fighter's case, light medium heavy punch. But still, it's not like those games, and I understand that for the most part, but it feels like nothing connects to any other normal in Tekken. There's never been a time where I press a button and then press a different button, and they come out quickly after one another. It feels like every move has to end before the next one comes out. And I'm realizing that I'm pretty sure it's because Tekken doesn't really have normals. You have right punch, right kick, left kick. Those are your normals. Every other move that you can do in Tekken is a special move. Down and punch, that counts as a special move. Rising end punch, that's a special move. Because it feels like there are only things that connect into other specific things in Tekken. And it feels like if you don't know what those things are, you're gonna be sitting in the fucking lab using every single move in that fucking move list forever, finding out what connects after what. And in what context these things connect. Because, again, it's all about juggles and Tekken, and connecting moves one after another in terms of like where they actually hit the other person. And if they don't hit the other person in specific ways, then you won't be able to connect them. And because they'll react to these things differently depending on the context of the situation, then sometimes your moves just won't work in the same context. And that's just not something I want to do in Tekken with all those fucking special moves. Especially when all those special moves have inputs that are just fucking weird. Like, oh yeah, you have to hold down, and then while you're rising, press this button and forward. Or you have to do back forward, but not a charge input, mind you, because that's a thing in other fighting games, which I don't necessarily like in those either, even though I play Leo. But it's not a charge input, but you have to do back and then forward and then press these two buttons at the same time. It's bizarre to me, and I don't understand how anyone can commit any of these to memory. There's just so fucking many. Unless what you're supposed to do is just not think about the ones that you're never supposed to use. But if that's the case, then why the fuck are they in the game? And it makes things especially hard when I just want to use what in my mind I consider to be normals, but so many moves are context sensitive that I can't even tell what move how to use a move after I just used it. In my footage, I'm pretty sure that there was two situations. One in which I was playing Geese, and one in which I was playing Noctis. And in both situations, I get sort of like a counter grab thing. And for Geese, I understand why he has it, because that's his thing. That's what Geese does. But I don't know how I did it, because in my head, I thought it was, in my head, I thought I was pressing back and grab at the same time, because down and grab for Geese is his ground grabs, because, again, that's Geese's whole fucking thing, especially in Tekken, where that makes him unique. And so I thought, just like how he has a down grab, he has a back grab, and his back grab are his counters, like from Fatal Fury. But then I did back grab a different time, and it just didn't come out again. I'm pretty sure I only ever landed one of them in the entirety of my Tekken footage, because I genuinely just don't understand how I did it. And then I was playing Noctis at some point, and I did a counter thing for Noctis, and I didn't even know how I did it there, because that was another time where I'm 90% sure that I held back and grab, but I didn't know how Noctis did it, because for one, I didn't think he was going to have a counter, and also because, again, I tried to do back and grab again, and it just didn't happen. And so it goes back to this thing where half the time it feels like my moves aren't coming out, and I don't know if it's because I'm pressing the wrong thing, because I'm mashing or whatever, or even just because I misunderstood whatever button I pressed, or if it's because I'm pressing the right thing but in the wrong context, and so it just isn't doing the thing because it doesn't exist in this state yet, which is weird to me and insane because it's not intuitive, and how am I supposed to figure these things out? Like, I'm not gonna say that I'm some fighting game genius or anything. I think I'm a pretty standard person when it comes to picking up new games, but in every other fighting game that I've played, at least the ones that I've talked about today, I've been able to pick up very basic things just from playing the game. I've never looked at a guide for DNF Duel, but I understand generally how some things work just from having played the game with friends. I've never looked up a guide for Blazblue. Nope, that's not true. I did look up a guide for team compositions. But I never looked at combos, and again, I still understand how certain things string together just from playing the game. I figured out a whole Yang combo from her powered up state just from fucking around in the lab. I can do that in other fighting games because it just works. Even in something like FighterZ, where the combos are very accessible, watching a video of someone doing a combo, just seeing what moves they use, not even the timing of the moves, not even having them describe the timing of the moves, or anything like that. Just seeing what moves they use can teach me what I'm supposed to learn about using certain moves and certain combos, but I cannot do that in Tekken. It just hasn't worked in any capacity. Again, every other fighting game I talked about today, it's worked. Even the fighting game I'm talking about next, Street Fighter, it's worked there. In every other fighting game, I've been able to pick up the basic things just from playing, but in Tekken, it just doesn't happen. It's just not there. I think the most basic thing I could pick up from playing Tekken was that Geese can grab people when they're on the floor, which is obviously very, very. I don't even know if I can call that basic, because that's just a thing Geese can do. Though I guess I can't even say that either, because I have no idea how his max mode works. Not only is there nowhere that describes that in-game, but even just trying to play the game, I couldn't figure out how it worked. Same goes for Akuma, because I played him a little bit in my off time, and I couldn't figure out how his meter worked. So, Tekken not having any sort of tutorial, at least not Tekken 7, is fucking awful. And I think that more importantly than game tutorials, games need character tutorials, because character tutorials will teach you how to play the game implicitly. You don't need necessarily a game tutorial to teach you that counters are invincible, because if you have a character tutorial with like Vegito, let's say, and you use his core circle back special, then you'll know that it's a counter that is invincible. You don't need a game tutorial to teach you that you can use grabs in combos and fighters, because if you have a character tutorial for Broly or for Vegito, you will find out from playing those characters that you can use their grabs in the middle of combos. I say all this to say, I am very disappointed in Tekken. And then even having played Tekken 8, because like I said, I played the demo for that, even playing the demo for that, I didn't feel like I learned all that much. I feel like, because from what I remember of the Tekken 8 demo, you get into it and it's like, okay, there are the 4 limbs, there's right punch, there's left kick, and there's right kick, and then you use those, and they're like, alright, now it's time for heat actions, and it's like, this is the new mechanic in Tekken 8, and it's like, whoa, you haven't even taught me how to play Tekken, you're already telling me about what Tekken 8 specifically does? Okay, that's nice, I guess. And I think the next one right after that was a combo. And it's like, I don't even, how am I supposed to understand how these combos work? I don't even understand how the buttons work. I understand what they do, but not how they string together in any sort of capacity. I might be misremembering it at least a little bit, but I remember Tekken 8's tutorial was also just way too fast and assuming you know what to do with the buttons. So even when Tekken does have a tutorial, I don't think it was very good. And then right alongside tutorials, I think training mode is also very good, because your training mode needs to be extremely robust to be able to give players a very good scope of what they can and can't do in any given situation that they might set up in training mode. And I think that FighterZ is probably the best one I've ever used, because it makes things like even just judging reaction times, because you can do something as simple as make this character react with this move after I do this thing after this many frames. Because in fighting games, there are things that are safe, and then there are things that look safe, and judging what people will judge to be looking safe is very, very important to finding out how your block strings work. And I think that FighterZ is the best one, because even something as simple as, okay, if someone mashes, if someone spams the fuck out of the light button, does this combo work? And the answer will most of the time be no. But then you can change the frame delay to, or not the frame delay, but like how many frames they will press the light button after, and it's like, okay, if they're not mashing, if they're just trying to react to what they see, how fast can they react to this? And I think the average human reaction time is like 14 frames, and so if you generally want a good idea of what people will be able to react to in FighterZ, you can set the delay time to 14 frames, and then see what block strings are not safe, but will look like they're safe enough for people to react to them, but then get caught by them. And that's really good for characters like Broly, who kind of thrives on tick throws, because Z Broly's tick throws do not work if people react to them. They can either jump, or they can just spam light or whatever. Especially if they're Vegito and they have a light that just does multiple hits. But you can judge how well people react to certain things you do in FighterZ, and it makes it really, really easy to use to find out how certain interactions work in FighterZ. And I think Guilty Gear is okay. I think that I have a mod installed for like training mode that shows hitboxes and all that, so it's not. They can definitely do better. I think hitboxes in general is something that every fighting game tutorial should do. Or not tutorial, training mode. There should be an option for showing hit and hurt boxes. Show me when there are active frames, when there are invincibility frames. Everything like that should be plainly visible on the characters. Street Fighter 6 does something interesting where they show you in a bar at the bottom, where it's like, oh, your character is invincible for this many frames. And actually, no, I think they do also show you on the character, because I remember turning blue and red for when I'm doing Kimberly stuff. So no, I think Street Fighter 6 also does a very good job. And if I could combine the training mode of every fighting game together, we probably have the perfect one. If I could combine FighterZ' reaction delays with Guilty Gear Strive's positionings and what else does Strive have? Honestly, not much. But if I could combine FighterZ' FighterZ also shows you like frame data, which is something that not every fighting game training mode does, which is insane to me, because Tekken doesn't show you if you're plus or minus on certain things. Like, I think they show you how many frames it takes for a move to come out, but I can never understand when I'm plus or minus in Tekken, like, implicitly, because that's another thing that other fighting games do that are very plain, to an extent. I think Blazblue kind of sucks at telling you when moves are plus or minus, but for the most part in fighting games, you can generally tell, even just based on feel, if not visuals, that a move is plus or minus. I can't do that in Tekken. I have no idea when I'm plus or minus in that game, and it's impossible to do anything, but yeah, a fighting game should also show you whether you're plus or minus, by how plus or minus, obviously, things like that. If I could combine DBFZ and Street Fighter's training modes, I probably have the perfect one, at least my favorite one, but there's a lot of improvement to be made in the entire fighting game space. And the fact that you can get away with things like Tekken 7 or King of Fighters 15 is insanely demoralizing to me, because, my god, just let people play fighting games in an accessible manner. You don't have to lower the ceiling, just lower the floor, please. That's all I ask. Though, having mentioned Street Fighter at this point, I suppose it's time to talk about Street Fighter, and like I mentioned earlier, this is the section of fighting games that I don't like. So you might wonder, why is it that I don't like Street Fighter, even though it's like the granddaddy of good fighting games, and it's supposed to be like the most accessible one in the world? And the thing about it is that I really don't know. Unlike Tekken, where I have a mountain of things to complain about for that game, I don't know why I don't like Street Fighter. Because I like the characters, I like playing Kimberly and Lily a lot. Like, the whole reason I bought Street Fighter 6 was because Terry was coming to the game, and I wanted to buy Terry, but then I found out how Street Fighter 6 monetizes itself, which, by the way, this isn't even about the gameplay. Street Fighter 6's monetization features are fucking awful. What is with this whole system of, hey, characters cost 350 fighters coins, but you can only buy them in increments of 250 or 400. It's insane to me. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it in live service games, and I hate it in Street Fighter 6. And I hate Capcom specifically for this reason, because it feels like Capcom is always trying to nickel and dime me. And in this specific instance, it feels way, way, way more annoying because it's fucking Street Fighter. You sold shit in Street Fighter 5 that was just straight up, hey, spend your money on these things, or use the in-game currency that you can earn to buy these things. But in Street Fighter 6, they're doing this stupid-ass Battle Pass bullshit, and with a currency that you can't do anything with, because if you want to buy a character, you have to buy it in increments of more than you actually want just to have leftovers that you can't use on anything else because it's also too expensive. I say all this to say, Street Fighter 6's monetization feature pisses me off, and I'm not buying Terry in protest, I guess. I can't really call it in protest because I bought the game, but I bought the game for Terry, and now I'm not doing that, so I'm just kind of sad. But I still like Kimberly and Lily, which is the other reason I bought Street Fighter 6, because I played the demo ages ago, and I liked Kimberly a lot. I'm pretty sure I even got a perfect just playing the demo. That was my first time playing the game. And I like those two characters' playstyles a lot, and they're so unique to Street Fighter 6 that I figured, yeah, I might as well just buy the game. Even if I don't like Street Fighter all that much, I might as well play it just to see and find out why I don't like Street Fighter, because maybe just playing it more will teach me why I don't like Street Fighter. And so far, I've been playing it, and to an extent, I do like it. It would be unfair to say that I don't like Street Fighter when I still consistently play it, but I don't know how much of it is me liking Street Fighter, and how much of it is me liking Kimberly and Lily, because even among those two characters, there are things I don't like the fact that Lily is one of the worst characters in the game. Feels like none of her things work half the time, especially her DP. Her DP is awful. I don't know how they put that in the character and was like, yeah, this is fine. Especially since her DP is not invincible, which I don't think any DP is invincible in Street Fighter 6, but some of them are way more active and big than others are, and cover way more important spaces. So it feels like I'm playing Lily at a disadvantage whenever I need to DP. And Kim's fun, but her dash move feels like it doesn't work sometimes, because there's this thing where you can hold down one of the kicks to do her dash follow-ups instantly, and there are times where I don't even press that button for a half a second, but Kim will still do the follow-up without me asking for it, even though what I wanted was for her to do the step-up move. And then there's times where she dashes up to someone, but she just doesn't step up on them for some reason. Like, I would understand if it was iframes, because the step themselves are technically damage-dealing moves, even if they don't take down the other person's health. So I understand why they wouldn't do the step up if they're invincible. That makes sense. That checks out to me. I would like it for it to do that, because it would make my character better, and it would mean that I could have an easier time playing the game, because, as everyone knows, when it comes to fighting game character buffs, the only good buffs are the ones for your main, specifically. Any other character, it's a bad buff, but if it's for a character you play, it's a good buff. So, keep that in mind. So as much as I would like that for Kim, I understand why they wouldn't do it. But there are times where they're not invincible, or at least they're not invincible anymore, and Kim is just running into them, not doing anything, not stepping, and I'm pretty sure it happens in the footage, which it happens so frequently that I'm pretty sure I have clips on my PC of it just happening that I could put into the footage, but I'm 90% sure that it happened in the footage I recorded for this video specifically, so I don't even think I need to look that far. So even among the characters that I play, there are things that I don't like, and so I don't know if it's that I like those characters and I don't like Street Fighter, or if it's that I do like Street Fighter, just not that much. I think one thing that does bother me is the whole air status, because, again, like in most fighting games, you can't block them in midair, but it doesn't feel as much of a problem as in DNF Duel, or technically in Tekken, even though jumping is technically useless in Tekken. I generally don't know why they allow you to do it, but in other fighting games, it doesn't feel as punishing. Even in King of Fighters, jumping does not feel as crazy as it does in Street Fighter 6. In Street Fighter 6, whenever I jump, it feels like I'm in the air for a fucking eternity. Like, they make for very defined jump arcs, but my god, no wonder people just react to DPs in this game, even if they're not invincible. You have all the time in the world to just do what you need to do. But yeah, aside from just me not liking jumps, I couldn't tell you why I don't like Street Fighter 6, really. So, I'm gonna keep playing it, and maybe I'll find out one day if I even dislike it, or if it's just that I don't like it that much. But one of these days, I will discover the answer to why does Gavin is Lightning not like Street Fighter. But something I will tell you is a reason I don't like Street Fighter 6 specifically, which is that the single-player content fucking sucks. Now, arcade mode is arcade mode. I have no complaints with that. That's just a thing in fighting games. I have no complaints with anything to do with arcade mode. All of my single-player complaints with Street Fighter 6 come from the story mode, or specifically the World Tour mode, where you play as John World Tour, and you go around the whole world facing off against the Street Fighter characters being like, hey, can you please teach me? Even though, as far as I understand it for some of these characters, they are not really the, hey, yeah, I'll just pick up a random apprentice type. But, you know, go off, I guess. Sure, Jury would just accept some random motherfucker to be a sparring partner. Sure, okay, whatever. Oh, JP, the villain of this game, got beaten by John World Tour, even though he's supposed to be on par with the other World Warriors? Okay, interesting, but go off, I guess. It's kind of implied that he threw the fight, because at the end of the story mode, he just sort of laughs to himself and is like, ha, you didn't win anyway. Which, the actual story of the story mode is a whole different thing. I don't like how much of my time it wastes. I don't give a shit about the Mad Year gang. Like, sure, Final Fight, yeah, not Fatal Fury. Fatal Fury is Terry. A Final Fight being connected to Street Fighter is interesting. I like the idea of a connected Capcom world with certain games. But fuck me, dude, I just do not care about this ugly motherfucker who's blonde with dreadlocks. Ew, disgusting, get that out of my face. Which honestly applies to a lot of World Tour characters. The characters in Street Fighter 6 can be horrendously ugly if they're not any of the playable characters. I'm sure that most of them are probably just randomly generated, but that's probably why they look so ugly. But yeah, the actual story itself is some shit that I just do not care about, so get that out of my face. The open world nature of it is more shit that I do not care about, so get that out of my face. And then there's the actual gameplay of World Tour, which is RPG bullshit, which disgusting, get that out of my face. Which it might sound strange because I like RPGs, but the one thing about RPGs that is a negative in every other video game it's ever been used in are levels. The only place where levels belong is in RPGs, because it only works for that genre of game. And even then, I would argue for a lot of RPGs, it doesn't work. And so the last thing I want to see in my fighting game, which is about skill expression above all else, is fucking levels. And hey, do you want to upgrade your health now? Do you want to upgrade your attack power? Do you want to be able to equip more special moves? Fuck you! Especially when you start to get to some of the harder fights in the game, because I think when you fight the Mad Year boss, there's a pretty insane difficulty spike in the game, where enemies have lower levels than you, but way more health and do way more damage. There's also that classic fighting game single-player content thing, where they have the enemies read your fucking moves, because I swear on my life, there are way too many times in Street Fighter 6 where enemies will just do some bullshit that it feels like they reacted to literally in the moment. Which is unfair, because how the fuck am I supposed to deal with that? Especially since I'm on limited resources. I have to heal myself in between fights, which is, again, fucking bullshit. But then you have motherfuckers like Carlos Miyamoto pulling out his stupid-ass sword move, which is damn near impossible to get away from. You can't super armor through it because it does like a billion hits in a second. You can't jump away from it if you're too close to him, because he'll pull it out pretty quickly, so if you jump away, then you'll just get caught in midair. You can't use a special move because the range it takes like half the screen, so you can't even do anything that's even gonna get kind of close to him. And then projectiles just won't do any damage, if they even go through at all, because I think he might cut through them. There's just too many fights in World Tour, most of them being not fun, most of them being fucking busy work, especially when you have to grind up your master styles. Like, dog, I just want to be able to use all of Lily's moves. Why do I have to do all this fucking fighting and then keep buying more food items to get my master level up faster? It's all just bullshit. I hate it, and it's stupid. And the worst part is I don't really see it going away anytime soon, because as far as I understand it, things like World Tour and the avatar creation in general is less so for people who want to play good video games, and more so for Joe Casual who likes to play the new video game that just came out and doesn't really want to cooperate with the game systems in any capacity. Which I suppose brings us to this week's gaming topic, which is, why don't casuals like fighting games? Because people have talked about this for a long time, and I think it goes beyond just game too hard. Because, yeah, fighting games are sort of difficult to get into, but so are a lot of other games. But people will hunker down and play Call of Duty or Halo or Fortnite as long as they possibly need to get good at those games, but it's not the same for fighting games. And why is that the case? And I think that the reason is kind of mocking, but I don't feel bad about mocking people, so I don't really give a shit. It's kind of like 1.5 reasons, really, but it's really just one thing, which is that whenever people play fighting games and they're casual, they don't ever end up playing with other casuals by their own choice, which is weird to me, because that would seem like the easiest way to get the thing that you want. if you play fighting games and you think that they're too hard, just play with other people who also consider them to be too hard, and you'll be on the same skill level, so it won't even matter what you're doing. I'm not even saying that casuals have to play with like other people in person or like meet people online. It's like, hey, let's just play this game casually. Let's not try to get better at it. I'm not even saying you have to do that, because you can get on ranked, and if you suck at the game will adequately put you in a lower rank where other people also suck. So it wouldn't matter if the game's hard, because you're playing against people who are also just as bad as you. And I think the reason that people don't want to do this is because whenever you do these things, whenever you play with other casuals or you play in lower ranks, it is far easier to tell that you're being bad at the game. And people don't like knowing they're bad at the game. They will accept the fact that they're bad at the game, but they don't like being shown or being acutely aware of the fact that they're sucking in a game. People do not want to get online and have fun with a game just to see the rank afterwards and be like, yep, you're in the lowest rank. Even if they know that's where they belong and that's where they want to stay, they don't like seeing that. So what they would rather do is play games like Call of Duty or Fortnite, where they don't show you your rank. In Fortnite, there's allegedly a hidden skill-based matchmaking check. I forget exactly how it works or if it even still exists in the game. I remember hearing about that a long time ago, and that's probably why Fortnite is so popular, because no matter how good you are at the game, if you're always playing with people on your level, and the game will never make you aware of the fact that your level is shit. And so people are much more fine with playing a game like that, and just implicitly getting better passively over time, that they don't even worry about whatever their rank is, and they can just play the game and have fun with it. And even in Call of Duty, I don't know if Call of Duty does still do skill-based matchmaking, but I know for a fact people complained about it, because one of the most insane things to me is people not liking skill-based matchmaking, which is crazy to me, because why would you want to get on a game and play against people who are fucking stomping you? But then I realized, oh, they don't want to get on people, they don't want to get on a game and have people stomp them, they want to get on a game and stomp other people. They don't want skill-based matchmaking, because people don't want to play on their skill level and have fun with the game on its own terms. They want to just get in the game and make believe that they're really good at it. And again, the whole make-believe part is very mocking, but again, I don't feel bad about it, because as far as I'm concerned, it's completely true. People just want to LARP being good at games, and what was particularly illuminating to me about this was when I saw someone posting about Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash, because as most people are aware of at this point, JJK Cursed Clash is like the most bargain bin 3D anime fighter of all time. It is one of the prime examples of a 3D anime fighter that was just made to cash in on the anime's popularity, and was not made in any sort of capacity to be like a fun video game. For as ugly and broken and stupid as Jump Force is, it's still a celebration of Shonen Jump. They still kind of tried with that game, whereas with JJK Cursed Clash, you get the fucking main menu, which is a bunch of Arial font text on a background, which is just the opening to the anime playing without any music. But to get to the point, everyone knows that game was just like low quality trash, but then I saw someone on Twitter being like, I don't even know why everyone clowns on JJK Cursed Clash and other 3D anime fighters. I just want to play casually and not have to lab the game that I'm playing. But that was insane to me as a thing to say unironically, because that describes every fighting game. You don't have to lab in any fighting game. A lot of fighting games don't even have training modes. They didn't in arcades. You just fucking played the game. You don't have to lab a single goddamn thing in any fighting game. Which is part of the reason I think FighterZ is so popular among fighting games, because in FighterZ, there are auto combos, and with FighterZ, you can just press the same button over and over and over again and get flashy supers and, you know, interesting looking combos. So people more gravitated towards FighterZ because it was a fighting game where they didn't have to know they were bad. They could just press the same button and get some decent-ish damage out. And because it's Dragon Ball, and because a lot of casual people picked up Dragon Ball FighterZ, they were able to play with other casuals, which is the thing that would solve all of their problems. But this is kind of why I say that it's a problem and a half, because the core of the problem itself, is that people want to play these games casually, but they just don't. They just refuse to. But that problem itself is split into either because people will not play with other casuals for one reason or another, and then the kind of sub-reason from that, which is they won't play with other casuals, because if they play with other casuals, they'll know that they suck at the game. Which is why people will gravitate to 3D anime fighters, because 3D anime fighters will never, ever, ever ask you of anything more than just pressing the same button over and over again, for the most part. So like, in a traditional fighting game, yeah, you can press the same button over and over again, and do that against someone else who's also just doing that, and, you know, you'll be on the same skill level, but you'll be able to tell, just from looking at the game, that both of you suck. But that's because the floor might be low for certain fighting games, but the ceiling is still very, very high. And the problem for most people is knowing that ceiling exists. They're not comfortable with being able to get in on the ground floor. They need to be able to see the ceiling at all times, and that's what bothers them. But then, in 3D anime fighters, the ceiling is so fathomably low that they don't even care how far away it is. It might as well be right up next to them. Because 3D anime fighters will ask you for so little that you really don't need to care about how far the ceiling is, because the ceiling isn't very far. You can get out on the floor and already be pretty good at the game. So they don't even have to worry about being bad at the game, or at least knowing they're bad at the game, because there's a bunch of particle effects going on, and they don't have to worry about any of that bullshit, right? As long as you can pretend you're good at the game, as long as you can pretend you're having fun, none of the rest of it matters to you. Because frankly, the bottom line is that most gamers just have bad taste, or low standards. Same difference, but as a friend of mine says, they're two balls in the same cock. And this will only continue to prove true when Sparking Zero comes out later on, because as far as I understand it, a lot of people played the Dragon Ball Budokai games, not really knowing that they were actually fighting games. They just kind of played them because they had very low ceilings, and they're kind of just bringing that back with bigger and better graphics in the modern day, even though they kind of never stopped doing that. Because Xenoverse 2 is another one of the bigger fighting games that people don't really see as a fighting game to an extent. But I think with Xenoverse 2, it's different because Xenoverse 2 has a semi-high ceiling. Because once you actually get into the weeds of that game, there is a lot you can do. Not a lot that I think is very good, mind you. But there are things you can do in that game that will make it very clear to anyone who's bad at the game that they're getting their shit kicked in. So, Xenoverse, I understand why that one's maybe not quite as popular all the time, especially since nowadays I don't even know what the hell's going on with that game, because Xenoverse 3 is never coming, because Xenoverse 2 is effectively the Mario Kart 8 of Xenoverse games, where it makes so much money, and people are so content with just playing that game over and over again that will they ever really make a Xenoverse 3? Is there any reason to? Point being that people will play Dragon Ball games and be fine with being bad at them because they can't tell they're bad at them, and that's just kind of going to be the pattern for a while. And I won't say it's not annoying, because it definitely is. It's very irritating to me to see people be so dismissive towards games, especially when the problem's with them and them being stupid. But it's one of those things with gaming that I just never see changing, because people still buy into it. Like pre-order bonuses, which is a topic I'll talk about some other day, because there's not enough time in the day for that now, but there's just a lot of things in the gaming industry that I never see changing, and casual gamers being stupid and having low standards is something that's going to be a constant forever. So, unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. And that's really it. I wish there was something better I could say, but like I said, I have no respect for these people, so I don't feel bad about pulling my punches. If there's a different reason that you don't like fighting games, then say that in the comments, because I'm very interested to see if it's anything beyond that. And I want to know why people don't like fighting games. Because, I mock those people in this video, but I know that's not the only reason. There could be a lot of reasons that people don't like fighting games, but that's the reason that's made itself most apparent to me from judging how people talk about fighting games whenever they say why they don't like them. Even if they don't explicitly say the things that I talked about here, because I say even though, they never do. They never explicitly say it's because I don't want to know that I'm bad at the game. But every time that I see people talk about fighting games and why they don't like them, this is what I extrapolate, because there's certain things that you can pick up from someone's language or the way they talk about things that you can, make inferences about the way they think. So again, if there's some other reason, let me know. But as far as I know, it's just because they're stupid and have low standards. But that's about it.